Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's debate for the 1st Congressional District on the east end of Long Island. And we're so happy you've joined us again. I'm Jane Hanson along with Steve Witt. And we are happy to bring you the latest edition of Sheeps. I'm sorry, we have a little dog that's barking in the background. Steve, why don't you talk for a minute while I control this?
Okay. So this is the debate of the what congressional district it is?
Number one, far eastern, like the far eastern part.
Long Island. It is the seat that Lee Zeldin currently holds, who is the gubernatorial candidate. And of the 3 Republican candidates, we have 2 of them with us today. We have LaLota and Anthony Figliola.
Right, exactly. And so bottom line here is that you guys are in a position where Lee has left the district and left a legacy, and here you both are trying to fill it. And it's very interesting. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Jane Hanson, along with Steve Witt from Schneps Media, and we are here to check out the issues and find out what's going on. So let me first start by laying a couple of ground rules about what's going on tonight, which is the first thing we're going to do is have a 2-minute statement from each of you, opening, telling us about why you're running and what you hope to accomplish. And then we'll ask questions, and you'll have 1 minute to respond to the question. And then if somebody wants to, either one of you wants to then add to whatever your opponent has said, please do for 30 seconds. We will also have closing statements at the very end. And we might, if we have enough time, we're going to let you ask each other a question, which is always an interesting part of these debates. Steve's our timekeeper. And if you see him wave, that means you get 1 wave, which means your time is close. The second wave means stop talking. So let us begin. Let's start with Nick, and 2 minutes for an opening statement. Tell us why you're running.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Stephen, for putting this together for us. I think it's important that folks like us make ourselves available to the public for things like this. I understand that all 3 candidates were invited, and respect to Anthony for showing up as well. My name is Nick LaLota. I'm the son of a cop, the brother of a Marine. And after I graduated from St. Anthony's High School, I went off to the Naval Academy and served 11 years in our country's Navy. Got to deploy overseas 3 different times, visited 20 different countries. And in that time, I came to understand that this is the greatest country our world has ever known. Right now, we're facing some serious challenges, challenges we all know about, we all read about, challenges that are on our TV every day, things about inflation, border security, public safety, the government's attack on our constitutional freedoms. And I'm running for Congress because I'm fired up, and Long Island needs a strong, bold representative to fill Lee Zeldin's shoes. He's going off to be our governor to help save our state, and somebody's got to carry this district and beat Nancy Pelosi's handpicked candidate in Bridget Fleming. I'd humbly submit that I'm the right person to do it, given my background. After I left the Navy, I came back home to marry my high school sweetheart, started a great family. We have 3 wonderful children. I earned an MBA and a law degree, and I got working in local government since then. I've been a Republican senator's chief of staff. I've been a Republican elections commissioner for 7 years, and I currently serve as the chief of staff to the Suffolk County legislature's Republican majority. I'm well informed on the issues and challenges that face my neighbors here in Suffolk County, and I would be proud to represent them in Congress. First things first, though, there's a Republican primary on August 23rd, and I would humbly ask for folks voting that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Anthony.
Great. Again, thank you, Schneps Media, for hosting this, and as well as Jane and Stephen for moderating this. And my challenger, I'm unfortunately, as my challenger just mentioned, it's unfortunate the other challenger couldn't make it. My name is Anthony Figliola, and I'm running for Congress in the 1st District of New York. I have the distinction of all the candidates. I'm the only one that was born and raised here and lives in the district. My wife, Christine, is a registered nurse. My background is in economic development. I work with small businesses that are looking to expand, and I help them grow. to the tune of, I've helped to create over 10,000 jobs and was able to bring in hundreds of millions worth of capital investments into Long Island. And it's something I'm very proud of. I'm not a politician. This is my first time running. And I think that's an important statement to make because I'm someone who's really focused on the people. As someone who's lived in this district, people always see me around. I care about this district, similar to Lee Zeldin, whose legacy that I believe I'm the strongest person of all three candidates to carry because I'm here. I'm present. I volunteered here. My kids go to school at Three Village School District. I grew up in Rocky Point. I went to school at Rocky Point High School. We're in the community. I've done a tremendous amount of volunteering. I'm on my son's the board of my son's baseball program. So we're very, very, very much in the community. And I think the importance of that is this. And if Lee Zeldin showed us anything, is that you have to be present. We have to focus in on a lot of issues that are happening, as I'm sure we'll discuss, on the economy, as well as people's individual liberties and others. But we really need someone who's going to be focused in on the people of this district. And it's something that's very important to me because I stayed here with my wife and my children, and this is where I'm raising my kids. And I believe that I'm the strongest one because I understand this district very well, from the East End all the way to Cold Spring Harbor. And I'm running because I'm running for the people. And I'd ask for your vote on August 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's get right to the issues. So out on the east end of Long Island, everybody's concerned about let's talk about what's going on with the environment. It's a place that has a lot of shoreline. It's got a lot of possibilities of, if we had another hurricane, there's a lot. So what about climate control? How do you guys feel about that? Nick?
Okay, good. So with respect to the environment, the environment is something not something that we inherit from our parents or grandparents. It's something that we're borrowing from our children. And I think that politicians of both parties and leaders of both parties need to have an obligation to help protect our environment. There are things on the East End, especially, that Lee Zeldin has been able to do with respect to coastal resiliency, beach fortification, protecting our fishermen, doing things to ensure that New York, specifically in this first district, gets federal resources to help protect it. New York gets hosed, though, by Congress. For every dollar we send to Washington, we only get 93 cents back. The next Congress and the next representative from this district needs to fight for New York to get its fair share. This is one of the
share, though. 93 cents out of a dollar.
Let's at least start with par. Let's at least start with getting $1 back for every dollar we give. Of 50 states, 93 cents is the fifth worst return on investment. Some states are getting $2 and $3 back for every dollar they send Washington. Okay. The next Congress is likely to be controlled by the Republican Party, and the first district is likely to have a Republican representative in it. That representative, me, would fight extra hard to ensure that we get federal resources to help protect our environment, especially on the East End.
Okay, Anthony?
I actually have the distinction as a Republican of being very involved in the environment. I was actually one of the few Republicans on the League of Conservation Voters, which is a not-for-profit advocacy organization, bipartisan. I've done a tremendous amount of work on the environmental side, and I agree. Lee Zeldin has done so much with fortification of our coastals. As well as with the Army Corps of Engineers and the billions of dollars that they're spending right now on the dredging all throughout the South Shore, from Southampton all the way out to Montauk Point and points all the way around through the North Shore as well. But I think what's really important is that what I've done, it's not just about the importance of it, it's what have you done? So I've been in this district and I've helped to fight for clean water. I helped champion a bill in Albany that allowed the taxpayers to be on stronger footing to go after those that knowingly pollute our drinking water, specifically issues that we're having with Riverhead and in Manorville, as well as the Bethpage plume, where the Suffolk County Water Authority and the Bethpage Water Authority were suing Dow Chemical to be able to go after those that knowingly pollute. So it's something that's incredibly important to me. And I've been in this fight and I've been championing going after those that knowingly pollute our drinking water. And the environment is exceptionally important. I think for the reason that we live on an island, we live on our sole source aquifer. And I think that's something that Republicans and Democrats can both agree on.
So what I forgot to mention is that when you see Steve's hand wave, that means your time is up.
Got it.
Oh,
To like wrap it up. In other words, you know, I won't like say stop, but once I wave it twice, you might hear me say stop if you walk through if you go through the second wave and seem like you're continuing to.
so I have lived on the east end of Long Island for a very long time. And obviously I am concerned about drinking the water, which we just addressed. I know you both just addressed it, but I do think that it's an important point that we don't know what's going on out here in terms of the water. And also if there's another great storm, you know, we can be in big trouble. So what can you promise to voters in terms of what you would do to protect them, make sure that their homes retain their values, be sure that I think we all worry about what's going to happen if another big storm like Sandy comes through. Fortunately, the East End wasn't hit that as hard as the rest of Long Island was, but you know, it's easy to imagine that it could happen.
Well, I think if I could jump in, I think one of the big issue is obviously storm hardening and what we saw after Hurricane Sandy. And I worked very closely with many businesses as well as municipalities to try to help them navigate through FEMA to be able to get the money for storm hardening. It's a couple fold. It's one, it's what Lee Zeldin has been pushing forward with the Army Corps of Engineers with a lot of the dredging and the storm hardening along our coastline. But then it's also when we talk about sewers, we have a lot of people on septic systems as well, and especially on the East End. And you look at Lake Agawam, you know, there are, you know, the county and others are trying to encourage those to get onto the new septic systems. I think those types of situations are important because we're trying to be less pollutant to our bays and waterways, but we need to be able to harden our systems, especially with new technologies that are out there, especially with sewer districts that we have some on the South Shore as well as the North Shore. We need to be able to identify ways that we can harden them. One of the things that I will do to carry on Lee's legacy, I will work to bring those infrastructure dollars back to this district to be able to storm harden to protect our citizens.
Nick?
Yeah, so, you know, Anthony brings up some nice local issues, and it's a shame we don't have the third candidate on this debate. I sense she would be totally ignorant altogether to Long Island's issues. She hasn't lived on Long Island for 25 years. She actually is renting an apartment here in the district just to run for Congress. And I'd imagine if she was here, would have no knowledge whatsoever of the local issues. Anthony hit on a couple of them. There's a couple more as well. You know, the overdevelopment here on Long Island in certain areas has led to more pollution. There's a nitrogen issue. You know, in the county legislature, some of my colleagues are reserving county funds to ensure that we buy more open space so that it can't be overdeveloped, so we can't have these runoff issues and exacerbate the problem that exists. You know, some of these issues are quite hyper local. It's going to take somebody with an awareness of all of them. You know, I think that it's nice that, you know, one candidate lives in a certain area and might be knowledgeable about that particular area. This is a district that has 40 or 50 hamlets in them, and each one of those hamlets has a different challenging issue. Either as the county elections commissioner or as the chief of staff in the county legislature. I've had jurisdiction over the entire county and thus the entire congressional district for the last 8 years. And there are some very hyper local issues that the next representative needs to address.
Well,
Can I rebut that? Can I add to that?
absolutely.
So I think it's important also, you know, in my capacity working in economic development, I've worked around the state with all different types of businesses as well as municipalities. And I've worked from the East End all the way to New York City. So I'm very familiar with the issues because, again, I live here. I'm born and raised in this district, and I think it's important to have someone who is here that's involved in the community. And I have been immensely involved in the community from an environmental standpoint, also from an economic development standpoint, and volunteering my time as well in the trying to get the electrification of the Port Jefferson rail line to reduce carbon emissions from the diesel trains that are currently on the track. And so these are issues that are very important to me because I've been involved in the community.
I'd like to ask a question, if it's okay, Jen?
Of course.
Thank you. It does, according to polls, it looks like the Republicans could gain the majority in the House. Should that come to pass, you're going to be the party in power. And I'm wondering what priorities, one, how would you work with the minority, the Democrats? And two, what priorities would you be interested in as a majority member of the House that could actually possibly get something done?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we have to tackle this inflation issue. And the first thing the federal government has a responsibility to tackle, and the Congress can do it, is get that Keystone Pipeline working. Allow more drilling on federal land, expedite those permits. The more we do that here, and we do it safely here, right? So if we're going to, right now, we're importing a heck of a lot of petroleum products from places like Russia and Venezuela and the Middle East. They're not doing it safely there. They're ruining the environment when they're doing that extraction of those petroleum products there. The next Congress needs to lean on the administration. President Biden is totally negligent in this respect. They've made a war on the petroleum companies, the oil companies. It's not fair. It's not right. It's exacerbated this inflation issue. The first thing that I would do as a member of Congress is get a bill on the president's desk to get that Keystone Pipeline going, drill for some oil, get it refined, get it to the gas stations, get it into homes so that we can heat and cool our homes at a lesser price, fill our gas tanks at a lesser price, because folks are getting squeezed. You know, it used to be that the paycheck to paycheck folks, the money would run out on day 30 of the month. Now it's running out on day 25. And folks are putting more money on their credit cards. They're skipping things for their kids. They're not doing the vacations. That's a problem this next Congress needs to do, and I would tackle it right away.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say obviously the economy is top on my list, given my background in economic development, something that's important to me. You know, when I look at what's happening right now, I talk to voters, and a lot of people are telling me they're struggling. I mean, you have 40% of seniors that are having difficulty paying just paying for regular bills and buying groceries. Something has to give. And when it comes to energy is important because, you know, we have the ice cream man is having trouble getting around now because diesel prices are so high. So kids are not even able to see the ice cream man come down their street as much as they used to. The point is that the Keystone XL pipeline, while important, and I worked in the oil and gas industry for many years, while it's important because it's bringing Canadian oil back down to the Gulf of Mexico, what's more important is reducing the restrictions on the oil and gas industry right now to be able to go ahead and drill. What's happening, what the Biden administration says, is that there are 9,000 approvals where these businesses can go ahead and drill. But what they're not saying is that they're making it overly restrictive, and they're putting so much royalties on it that they can only really get about a third of what they need out of it. And they're taxing them about 50% more, in royalties. So it's disadvantage for them to do that. And what happens is the net result of it is that the gas prices go up. And that's something that I will fight for, to make sure that these oil and gas leases, the restrictions are off of them so that they can be able to go ahead and bring us back down to the Trump administration at $2.50 a gallon.
Thank you.
So you guys want to represent a district that has an enormous difference in the people who live there. Way on the East End are people who are enormously wealthy, and towards the West End of Suffolk County, the West End of the district, are people who are middle class and, you know, living their lives. Property taxes. How do we make them so that they are resilient and that they actually reflect what's going on?
Yeah, specifically, you can address the salt tax, I suppose,
Yeah.
on a federal level.
So property taxes are the number one reason why people have been leaving Long Island and New York State for a good 10, 20 years. We added to that recently the lack of public safety, mostly created by the state's new bail reform law. But property taxes are the number one reason that New York State leads the entire country in out-of-state migration. It absolutely is an issue that needs to be tackled. As a village trustee and budget officer, I was proud to have had 4 consecutive budgets where we complied with the tax cap. I cut discretionary spending. We earned credit rating upgrades. We merged and consolidated positions. You know, that's the number one thing that Long Islanders want, is they want property tax relief. You know, the SALT relief has failed several different times in Congress. There needs to be a new, fresh approach to it. I think if we had things like term limits, you would have new representatives who might be able to be better attuned to new and fresh ideas. I think there needs to be a new approach to reinstituting SALT, something I'm totally in favor of, but we need to put some new ideas on the table. And I think one new idea is, you know, give the blue states like ours back our SALT, but we need to make a concession. We need to ensure that local governments are in fact spending less, borrowing less, give some measurables to give the rest of the country some confidence that we as a blue state respect that we have this deduction that we should have. But I think we have to give something back, and the something we give back is an obligation as local governments that we spend less money.
Yeah, where people get, we're a middle class working family. We're getting hammered right now. I mean, I think most people that I talk to, and you talk to people on the street, just regular, we are a blue collar working class community, with the exception of obviously you have the Hamptons and the folks that fly in from the city. But the reality is that we're mostly blue collar and working class. And what we have to do is we've got to give them relief. People are desperate for relief right now with the Biden inflation at 10+%. It's really probably closer to 18% right now. People are struggling to pay their bills. SALT is certainly part of it, but it's also deregulating small businesses. And, you know, we have this Biden Build Back Better plan that's going to be hundreds of billions of dollars. We don't even know what's in it yet, but I could rest assured there's going to be taxes in there, and there's going to be taxes on small businesses, because we have a tremendous amount of small business owners here on Long Island in this district. And definitely after COVID, we've seen more people try to start businesses. The problem is with a lot of these owners' taxes, New York State is included in this. We lost a third of our small businesses during this pandemic, and many unfortunately did not come back. We need relief. I will be someone in Congress. I will push for the SALT deduction to come back. I will push for relief, and I will fight back, because I'm going to read these bills and I'm going to push back against the Biden Build Back Better plan that's going to be pickpocketing New Yorkers and giving money to the rest of the country for the redistribution of wealth.
If I can just jump in as well, I think there's an opportunity to kind of rebut a little bit.
Yes.
You know, property taxes, I think, Anthony, I agree, are a major issue here on Long Island. And I suspect the reason that we don't have the third candidate in this debate forum right now is because she has no understanding of it, because she's never paid a single penny in New York property taxes. Pays a lot in Maryland and DC property taxes. Never in her life has she suffered the property tax pain that the rest of us have suffered. You know, the theme of the first couple of questions is, I think, what is your understanding of the most local issues? And it's unfortunate that the candidate who knows nothing about those issues is not with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go talk about safety. You know, we talk a lot about gun control. We talk about keeping kids safe in school. We talk about how do we make sure, I mean, look at the shootings that have happened. They can show up just about anywhere. What would you, both of you, do in Congress to help ensure that we are safe? And it's a different conversation than it is when you're talking for people who are running in New York City, because on the east end of Long Island, it's a completely different atmosphere. However, you don't know what could happen where. So how do we keep people safe?
Well, I think from a safety perspective, first, we have to give our law enforcement the resources and tools that they need to do their jobs. And you have places like New York City where, unfortunately, they're spending more time defunding the police than they are funding them. I'm going to be someone who's going to work with law enforcement. I've done it before. I will continue to do it with law enforcement to give them the resources that they need. Quality of life on Long Island is something very important, because we all probably had either our parents or grandparents were from New York City and they came here. My grandparents got a summer bungalow in Sound Beach, and then we ended up growing up in Rocky Point because we just loved this community, and we, you know, we're the type of people that, you know, what school district are you from? And that's how we identify, because we love our community so much. So it's really making sure that they're protected from that standpoint. When you talk about the Second Amendment, I believe in the Second Amendment, and I'm supportive, and I'm pro Second Amendment as a gun owner. But what I don't hear from the Democrats is they spend a lot of time dancing on graves. And as a father of young children, it bothers me, because what's really going on here is that they're not enforcing the laws that are currently on the books. And after, you know, Uvalde was, as a father, was absolutely horrendous. And then you saw what happened in Buffalo, which was just terrible. These poor 10 souls died because some psychopath went in there and mowed them down. Then we find out that New York State had passed all of these red flag laws that they weren't following. So I think what I want to do is I want to go through and make sure that we're following the laws that we currently have on the books, and not castigating and going after the 99.9% of law-abiding citizens that own weapons.
So I'm the son of a cop, and both of my grandfathers were NYPD. And I have a deep respect for our law enforcement officials here. As a village trustee, I voted to fund more bulletproof vests, guns, vehicles, training requests to make sure that our brave men and women in uniform had the tools necessary to do their jobs, because that's the first line of defense for us here. The state legislature has passed some terrible laws recently. Cuomo and the Senate and Assembly Democrats passed a ill-conceived bail reform law that allows folks to get back on the streets right away after committing some very terrible offenses having to do with assault and burglary, even some forms of arson. You get back on the street right away. We saw just last week a congressman, a candidate for governor, get attacked by a pretty deranged individual with some brass knuckles looking knife and tried to kill a person. The guy was back on the street within a couple of hours. That's not how we should perform as a society. Our judges should be allowed to have discretion to keep somebody without putting them right back on the streets. Real quick, I know I'm running out of time. Second Amendment is important. You know, I grew up in that law enforcement family. I was trained to safely and to operate a lawful firearm. I furthered that understanding as a military officer. I agree. We don't need more laws with respect to those. We need to enforce the ones that are on the books and distinguish the law-abiding gun owners from the criminals.
And I think I want to add one more thing that's important is, you know, I've spent a lot of time talking as I'm traveling around the district, talking to people in my own district. There are a tremendous amount of off-duty and retired police officers in our schools. And I think our school systems here on Long Island should have the opportunity, if they so chose, to have those former law enforcement officers be armed in the schools. I think that's an option.
Armed in the schools?
Yes, I do. Yeah. If a school district decides that they want to do that and you have former law enforcement, then yes, I do believe that that should be an option on the table to protect our children. As we saw in Uvalde, that, you know, if we had armed security, I think it would have been a different situation if it happened in one of our schools.
So we talked about bail reform. Both of you brought it up. Allegedly, bail reform is supposed to be able to help people who are what?
I just want to ask kind of quickly, Supreme Court decision, Roe versus Wade. Do you think it should be codified on a federal level? Are you right to life or I mean, what is your view? Are you like I'm curious because
so I support the Supreme Court's decision to repeal Roe v. Wade and give the maximum amount of power to the voters of states to elect representatives who they can have represent their views. I think judge-made law is terrible. I learned in 11th grade that the legislature writes the laws, the executive branch executes the laws, and the judicial branch interprets those. And that's the best form of government that we should have here in this country. I understand that folks want to fight extremism as it relates to abortion. We have some pretty extreme laws here in New York. And right now, a doctor or even a non-doctor can kill a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month baby. That is a soul, that is a living thing. And it should be murderous to kill a 7th, 8th, 9th month being. And if you want to talk about repealing extreme laws or codifying things, that in New York should be thrown out right away.
do you support like up to a certain point, 15 weeks or 10, or are you?
It's the Supreme Court held it's a state issue, and the state legislature should immediately tackle that late term abortion stuff. Everybody, not everybody, 80-90% of people in this district agree late term abortion is abhorrent. It's tantamount to murder. That should be dealt with right away by the state legislature. The federal government should not be in this business.
So what do you consider late term?
7th, 8th, and 9th month.
So I come from a little bit of a different perspective. I was on the board of Soundview Pregnancy Services, which is a non-abortion crisis pregnancy center on Long Island, the only one of its kind, and we have 2 locations. And you know what's missing from the conversation that I've seen over the years that I've been involved in it is that we have to talk about not just the child, which is to me important. I believe life begins at conception, and science backs me up on that. But it's also about hope for the mother and creating a support system for her. And when women come in and they decide to choose to have their child, a lot of times it's a messy situation, and they may not have a support system with the husband or the boyfriend, or there's a strained relationship with the mom or the dad. How do you repair those relationships? And we not only have doctors and nurses, but what I've seen is I've seen so many people give of their time and volunteer and work with that woman. And we work from conception all the way to 2 years after birth with baby bottles, with diapers, formula, counseling, and long-lasting relationships have come from that. And I've seen women go back to college or be able to, because of the support system that was nurtured through Soundview. I've seen women continue to go to college, get master's degrees, come back and say it was the greatest gift that they ever had was having that child. So from that perspective, when you talk about, so I think that's important and something that's been left out of the conversation, especially in Washington, where it's become so polarized. But also when it comes to Roe v. Wade, it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I agree with her, that it was not the Supreme Court's decision, that it should have been the legislature, whether it was the federal government or it was the states, but the Supreme Court said it should go back to the states, because I don't believe that they should be legislating from the bench as a strict constitutionalist. So I agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and this current Supreme Court in bringing it back to the states for the people to decide.
And again, I would note one thing. It's a shame we don't have the third candidate in this race, somebody who was a former Democrat, somebody who gave over $6,000 or $7,000 to late-term abortion Democrats. It's a shame we can't get that person on the record for where she stands and on this now, or where she at least stood before on this. What a shame.
Are you both willing to, if the Republicans retake the House? We've had a very polarized government in Washington. Are you prepared to work with Democrats across the aisle, or do you feel like, wow, we got the ball now, we can, we got the bat, we can run with it? I mean,
I think you could find compromise where you can, where I'm not going to compromise on a radical left agenda, like, the Green New Deal, where we have electric airplanes, or, where they're trying to push these unconstitutional mandates on every man, woman, and child, where people that I know have lost their jobs. My wife is a registered nurse for 20 years. And she was being forced to almost lose her job because of vaccination status and others. So I think we've got to be very careful on where I'm going to fight and where, I can find compromise. Listen, I'm willing, as somebody who believes in renewable energy, but I also believe we're a fossil fuel nation. I think I can find compromise in certain places. But I think the biggest issue is that can the AOC crowds, I don't believe you can compromise with those zealots, because they're just so focused on themselves. They're so focused on making us a second-rate global nation, and they're not focused on the people. If I can find commonality with maybe some Democrats that actually are rational, that want to cut taxes, that want to give people back their individual liberties, then absolutely. When I get into Congress, I'll try to find those people, and we'll try to make rational thought back into the United States House of Representatives and focus on the people and not the special interests and the parties, which is what Washington has become. And it's the reason that Donald Trump was elected president. I've seen this movie before, and it's happening all over again, where Washington is forgetting about the people. And that's why I'm running, because I believe that it's the people's house, not the party bosses and not the special interests.
Thank you.
So in 2018, when Democrats had control of the House, they pulled some shenanigans, and they made DC a circus. They made hearings that were not worth the public's time. And I hear what you're saying, Steve. I think it's going to be tempting for the party in power to do something similar this time around. And I think that there's two paths the House Republican majority can take. We could do things like spend months and months or even a year on Hunter Biden's laptop, and there should be some accountability there. Or we could do things like the Keystone XL pipeline. We can secure our border. We can make smarter national security decisions. And listen, Joe Biden's, going to be in that Oval Office, and he's going to have to sign legislation. And if we go down path one, where we spend all our time on Hunter Biden's laptop, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be accountability there should, but we need to find ways to address the issues that matter, to have legislation, to have sound budgeting. Folks with whom I speak, yes, the Hunter Biden stuff is a little bit glamorous, but what they really want is the solution to the gas prices. They really want solution to public safety. They want smarter national security decisions. And those are the things I want to focus most of my time and energy on.
If I could jump in just on that, because I think it's important. Certainly it's salacious and the media loves to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop. What to me is important from a national security perspective is that, he received millions of dollars from the Ukraine, received millions of dollars from the Chinese Communist Party. And we need to understand what did he get in return? What did potentially Joe Biden get in return? Because what I'm seeing right now in the Chinese Communist Party in China is that we pull out of Afghanistan, we leave billions of dollars worth of equipment there. The Chinese come in working with the Taliban and potentially ISIS as well. And they're now creating the new Silk Road, where they're going in and they're mining for all different types of raw materials and resources that China is absorbing. We're seeing the same thing that China is doing in Africa as well. This is part of America's national security. So from that standpoint, not the salacious details that everybody likes to talk about in the Post, but from a national security perspective, we need to understand, was Hunter Biden or anybody in the administration compromised? because from a national security perspective, because I certainly don't want to send our men and women overseas to advance some sort of Joe Biden deal that he had with the Chinese Communist Party.
Thank you.
So one last question for you all. If Donald Trump runs for president again, will you support him?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's time for closing statements, 2 minutes each. Nick, let's start with you.
Thank you so much for providing this opportunity for us to be accountable to the voters of the 1st Congressional District. I think public transparency is a key for running to public office. It's not always easy to do. You open yourself up. You open yourself up to the public input, but this is what we signed up for, and this is the accountability that the public should be able to have. Again, it's a shame that we don't have the 3rd candidate on with us tonight. It's a shame that person is not accountable to the public. On August 23rd, we have a big primary. And we will decide as a district who will go to be on the ballot and ultimately represent this district in Congress. There are many issues that our country and our island are facing right now. There are issues about inflation, about public security, about national security, about our freedoms, about our liberties. And we need a strong person who can fill Lee Zeldin's shoes to defend Long Island in a swamp, in an area where there are deals made and there are backroom deals made. We need a strong fighter who has proven his love for his country, a lifelong Republican, somebody dedicated to the conservative cause. I would humbly submit that I'm that person. I'm the son of a cop, the brother of a Marine, somebody who served this country honorably for 11 years. And I would humbly ask for your vote on August 23rd. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick. Anthony?
You want to elect someone who's part of the community, someone who looks like you, someone you meet at Costco or Walmart. I'm the son of 2 Navy veterans. I appreciate and love our veterans, and I have a lot of friends that served in the military and that are law enforcement as well. I'm not a politician. I'm someone that cares about my community. I've been involved in helping to create thousands of jobs and investments. I volunteered my time to help create opportunities for transportation and revitalization of our communities. I've worked in the pro-life movement and I've helped people of all backgrounds. I've spent a tremendous amount of time working also in the environment. I've helped to create tremendous opportunities in solar, as well as advanced clean fossil fuels. I'm someone that's here. I'm in the community. You want to have a person that understands your issues because I'm in this grind with you. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to try to figure out how to pay your bills every single month, to pay taxes, to have a mortgage. It's hard. And you want to have someone that represents you in Congress that feels your pain, that's not going to go off and just be a part of the swamp and be focused in so much on the special interests and the lobbyists, because we see it on both sides. And I'm the outsider. I'm not that GOP's pick, but you know what? I'm part of the grand old people. I believe that it's the people's house and the people deserve an opportunity. And so I humbly ask for your support on August 23rd. And actually there is early voting. So if you want to early vote between the 13th and the 21st of August, please come out. But I'm someone that's going to be here, that's going to fight for individual freedoms, that's going to fight along those that are trying to get their school boards to be held more accountable, because I'm in this grind. I'm in this fight with you. I love this community. I've never left. And I'm going to be someone that you can always pick up, just like Lee Zeldin. I'm going to be in and on the ground working with you. So I ask for your vote on August 23rd. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Both Nick and Anthony, we're thrilled you're with us this evening. And Stephen, as usual, thank you.
Always nice, Jane.
And thank all of you for joining us. And again, to repeat, vote on August 23rd or from the 13th on, because it's important and it's your job. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night.